Tonight, before you close your eyes, take a deep breath and allow your heart to become still. This day may have left you tired, burdened, and carrying pain that no one else can fully see. Maybe your body feels weak. Maybe your mind feels restless. Maybe your heart has been fighting battles in silence. But in this moment, you do not need to force anything. You do not need to pretend to be strong. You do not need to carry the full weight of your worries into the night. This is your moment to pause, to breathe, and to let peace come near. There is something powerful about the quiet of the night. When the noise fades, when the pressure slows, when the world around you becomes silent, the soul begins to speak. And sometimes, healing does not begin with noise, effort, or struggle. Sometimes healing begins with stillness. Sometimes it begins when you finally stop running, stop overthinking, stop carrying, and simply rest. Tonight is not just another night. Tonight can be the beginning of restoration in your heart, in your thoughts, and in the deepest places of your life. If you have been feeling broken, exhausted, discouraged, or overwhelmed, let this be the moment where hope rises again. If you have been carrying pain in your body, confusion in your mind, or heaviness in your spirit, let this be the moment where comfort begins to replace fear. You may not have all the answers tonight. You may not see the full change yet. But even now, something inside you can begin to settle. Even now, peace can enter the places that have been hurting for so long. Even now, your heart can find rest. So as you prepare to sleep, do not enter the night with fear. Do not lie down with only worry in your mind. Lie down with excitation, lie down with calm, lie down believing that rest is not weakness but renewal. Believe that healing is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, sometimes it is gentle. Sometimes it begins while the world is sleeping and your heart is finally learning to be still again. And tonight, as you rest, may peace cover your mind, strength return to your soul, and comfort fill every part of you. There is a kind of tiredness that sleep alone cannot fix. It is the tiredness that settles deep inside after carrying too much for too long. It comes from the conversations you keep replaying in your mind, the pressure you never spoke about, the worries you hid behind a calm face, and the silent battles you fought while still trying to smile through the day. By the time night arrives, your body may be ready to rest, but your heart may still be holding everything tightly. The truth is, many people lie down at night, but very few truly let go. They close their eyes, yet their thoughts remain wide awake. They place their head on the pillow, yet their spirit is still standing in the middle of unfinished stress, unanswered questions, and emotional heaviness that followed them all the way into the dark. Letting go of the weight of the day is not pretending that nothing happened. It is not denying your pain, ignoring your disappointment, or acting as though everything is fine when it clearly is not. Letting go is something deeper and wiser. It is the quiet decision to stop carrying into the night what no longer needs to be held in this moment. It is allowing yourself to admit that you have reached the end of the day, and that whatever remains unresolved does not have to be solved before you can rest. Some burdens are made heavier not because they are impossible, but because you keep lifting them again and again in your mind. You replay the same scene, you rethink the same mistake, you revisit the same fear, and with each return, the burden grows. But there comes a moment when healing begins not by fixing everything, but by loosening your grip. The mind can become a place of endless noise when the day has been difficult. One thought leads to another and another until the heart feels crowded and overwhelmed. You think about what you should have said differently. You think about what might happen tomorrow. You think about the people who hurt you, the tasks you could not finish, the things you wish had gone better, the responsibilities still waiting for you in the morning. Little by little, the soul becomes exhausted under the pressure of carrying both today and tomorrow at the same time. That is why the night is not only for sleeping, it is also for releasing. It is for stepping out of the courtroom of self-judgment. It is for setting down the invisible load you have been dragging through your thoughts. It is for creating a small space within yourself where peace can finally enter. You were never meant to end every day in battle with your own mind. You were never meant to measure your worth by how much pain you can endure without collapsing. Strength is not always found in holding on. Sometimes strength appears in the moment you finally say, "This is too heavy for me to carry tonight." There is courage in that honesty. There is wisdom in that surrender. There is healing in giving yourself permission to rest before everything is perfect. The world teaches people to keep pushing, keep solving, keep proving, keep carrying. But the heart has its own truth. The heart knows when it has become too tired to keep pretending. And when you listen closely, you may realize that what you need most tonight is not another answer, not another plan, not another attempt to control what comes next. What you need is release. Release begins with gentleness. It begins when you stop speaking harshly to yourself for being human. You may have had a hard day. You may have said the wrong thing, missed an opportunity, failed to meet an expectation, or simply felt emotionally worn down for reasons you cannot fully explain. But tonight is not the moment to punish yourself with endless reflection. Tonight is the moment to show yourself mercy. You do not have to relive every disappointment as though suffering more will somehow change what happened. You do not need to carry guilt longer just to prove that you care. You do not need to stay mentally trapped in moments that have already passed. What happened today happened. What was painful was painful. What was heavy was heavy. But now the day is over, and you are allowed to loosen the chains of it around your mind and heart. There is also a hidden fear many people feel when they try to let go. They worry that if they stop thinking about it, they will lose control. They fear that resting means they are neglecting something important, and believe that constant mental pressure is the same as responsibility. But it is not. Obsessing is not the same as solving. Carrying emotional weight all night is not the same as preparing for tomorrow. In fact, the burdens you refuse to release often weaken you more than the problems themselves. A tired mind loses clarity. An overburdened heart loses hope. A soul that never rests begins to believe that peace is something for other people, not for them. But peace is not a reward for having everything figured out. Peace often begins when you decide that your well-being matters too. To let go of the weight of the day is to trust that you do not need to hold every worry at once. It is to understand that not every unanswered question belongs in tonight's thoughts. Some things can wait until morning. Some things need distance before they make sense. Some things do not need your fear. They need your stillness. When you release the day, you create room for renewal. You allow the body to soften. You allow the mind to quiet. You allow your breathing to slow and your inner world to unclench. This does not mean life suddenly becomes easy. It means you stop forcing your exhausted heart to perform one more hour of emotional labor when what it truly needs is kindness. And perhaps that is what makes the night so sacred in a human sense. It offers a pause that daylight rarely gives. It invites you to be still without explanation. It asks nothing from you except honesty. In the dark, there is no need to impress anyone. No need to prove your productivity. No need to hide how deeply you have been affected by what the day placed on your shoulders. You can simply be tired. You can simply admit that you have carried enough. You can simply breathe and release, little by little, thought by thought, weight by weight. Let the pressure leave first from your forehead, then from your jaw, then from your shoulders, then from your chest, then from the part of your heart that has been bracing itself all day. Let tonight become a quiet turning point where you stop dragging the whole day behind you and begin allowing yourself the dignity of rest, the softness of peace, and the freedom of no longer holding what your soul was never meant to carry. Alone pain does not always arrive with a visible wound. Sometimes it lives quietly beneath the surface, hidden behind normal routines, polite smiles, and the words, "I'm fine." Fear does not always shout either. Sometimes it whispers in the middle of the night, asking questions your heart is too tired to answer. Emotional heaviness is often the same. It does not always come from one dramatic event. Sometimes it builds slowly, piece by piece, from disappointments you never fully processed, pressure you kept carrying, grief you never had time to name, and worries that settled in your chest long before you realized how much space they had taken inside you. By the time night comes, you may feel drained without fully understanding why. Your body may be lying still, but inside something is still aching, still trembling, still holding on. To release pain, fear, and emotional heaviness is not to deny that they exist. It is not to pretend you were never hurt or to force yourself into false positivity. Real release begins with honesty. It begins when you stop running from what you feel and gently admit that something inside you has been carrying more than it was meant to. Many people stay trapped in emotional exhaustion because they believe strength means silence. They think they must keep everything inside, manage every burden alone, and never allow themselves to slow down long enough to feel what is really happening within them. But hidden pain does not disappear just because you ignore it. Hidden fear does not weaken because you refuse to name it. Emotional heaviness often grows in the places where truth is not allowed to breathe. There is a deep kind of relief that begins when you stop fighting your own emotions. When you say to yourself, "Yes, I have been hurt. Yes, I have been afraid. Yes, this has been heavier than I wanted to admit." Something inside you starts to soften, not because the problem has vanished, but because the pressure of pretending has lifted. The human heart grows tired not only from pain itself, but from the constant effort of acting as though pain does not matter. Fear becomes heavier when it has no place to be acknowledged. Sadness becomes darker when it is treated like weakness. Emotional heaviness becomes more exhausting when you judge yourself for feeling it in the first place. That is why release starts with permission. Permission to feel, permission to be affected, permission to stop being at war with your own inner life. Pain has a way of changing how you see everything. It can make simple things feel difficult. It can steal the color from moments that should feel light. It can turn rest into restlessness and silence into a place where every hidden emotion grows louder. But pain is not meant to be your permanent identity. It may be part of your story, but it does not deserve to become the whole story. When you carry pain without releasing it, it begins to shape your thoughts, your expectations, and your sense of self. You stop trusting peace because pain has become more familiar. You stop expecting relief because heaviness has been your normal for too long. Yet the heart was never designed to live under endless emotional pressure. It was made to recover, to breathe, to heal in layers, to find moments of calm, even while life remains imperfect. Fear is another burden that quietly steals strength. It often disguises itself as preparation, caution, or control. You tell yourself that if you keep thinking about what could go wrong, maybe you can protect yourself from being hurt again. But fear rarely protects the heart in the way it promises. More often, it keeps the mind in a state of tension, rehearsing disasters that have not happened, reliving moments that are already over, and creating a constant sense of danger even when the night around you is still. Fear makes the body tense and the spirit tired. It keeps you bracing for impact even when there is nothing in front of you except a pillow, a dark room, and the chance to rest. Releasing fear does not mean becoming careless. It means refusing to let imagined outcomes control the peace you still deserve tonight. Emotional heaviness can come from carrying too much for too many people for too long. Sometimes you are not only holding your own burdens, you are absorbing the moods, expectations, problems, and disappointments of everyone around you. You try to be the strong one, the reliable one, the calm one, the one who keeps going no matter what. But even strong hearts need release. Even dependable souls grow weary. Even people who seem fine on the outside can be collapsing under invisible weight on the inside. There is no shame in reaching the end of the day and realizing that what you are carrying is too much. In fact, that realization can be the beginning of healing. Because once you recognize the heaviness, you can stop treating it like a normal part of who you are and begin treating it like something that needs care. Releasing emotional heaviness often begins in very small ways. It may begin with one deep breath that is slower than all the rushed breathing you have done throughout the day. It may begin with unclenching your jaw, loosening your shoulders, softening your chest, and allowing your body to stop acting like it must remain on alert. It may begin with telling yourself the truth. I do not have to solve everything tonight. I do not have to keep carrying this in the same way. I do not have to stay trapped inside the pressure of this feeling forever. Those simple thoughts can open space where peace was previously blocked. Release is not always dramatic. Often it is quiet. Often it is subtle. Often it is the moment when you stop feeding the heaviness with more fear, more replaying, more internal criticism, and simply allow yourself to rest in the fact that you have done enough for one day. There are wounds the world cannot see, and because they cannot be seen, people often expect you to move on faster than your heart is able to. But healing is not something you rush to satisfy appearances. Emotional pain has its own language, its own rhythm, its own need for tenderness. You do not help a wounded heart by commanding it to hurry. You help it by giving it safety, by allowing it stillness, by refusing to shame it for needing time. The same is true with fear. Fear does not leave because you insult yourself for feeling it. It begins to lose its grip when you stop giving it power over every moment of quiet, when you stop treating every uncertainty like a threat, when you remember that not every thought deserves to be believed and not every feeling deserves to become a permanent home inside you. Night can become a sacred kind of pause, not in a religious sense, but in a deeply human one. It is a space where masks can fall away, a space where the pressure to perform can finally loosen, a space where you can admit what the day cost you and choose not to carry every fragment of that cost into sleep. Tonight, your pain does not need to be erased for you to begin releasing it. Your fear does not need to be fully understood for you to stop letting it dominate your inner world. Your emotional heaviness does not need to vanish instantly for your heart to start feeling lighter. What matters is that you begin, that you allow your mind to step back from the noise, that you allow your body to receive rest without resistance, that you stop gripping the sorrow so tightly, that you stop rehearsing the fear as if repetition will create safety, that you remember your inner world deserves gentleness too. And maybe that is the deepest truth of all. Release is not about becoming empty, cold, or numb. It is about creating room for comfort, for breath, for calm, for the possibility that tomorrow does not have to feel exactly like today. It is about refusing to drag unhealed pain into every new hour as if suffering is the only proof that what you felt was real. It is about honoring your emotions without becoming imprisoned by them. Tonight, let the heaviness come out of hiding. Let the fear lose some of its voice. Let the pain be acknowledged without being allowed to rule. Let your breathing become slower than your thoughts. Let your body feel supported by the bed beneath you. Let your heart understand that it does not have to keep bleeding in silence just to survive. And in that quiet space, where you are no longer fighting every feeling and no longer carrying every weight in the same way, something inside you begins to loosen, to soften, to breathe, to remember that even after pain, even after fear, even after long days of emotional burden, there is still a way back to calm, a way back to lightness, a way back to the part of you that has been waiting for permission to rest. Peace is not something most people naturally carry into the night. More often they carry noise. They carry unfinished conversations, unanswered messages, unspoken worries, pressure from tomorrow, and the lingering emotional residue of everything that weighed on them during the day. Even when the room becomes quiet, the mind often does not. It keeps moving, keeps replaying, keeps searching, keeps preparing, as if the heart is afraid that if it slows down for even a moment, everything will fall apart. That is why embracing peace before sleep is not a small idea. It is not just a soft thought to make the night feel pleasant. It is a deep act of care for your inner life. It is the decision to stop feeding your mind with tension at the very moment your soul is asking for rest. It is the willingness to welcome calm, not because everything is solved, but because you understand that your heart cannot heal in an atmosphere of constant pressure. Many people think peace will come automatically when they are tired enough. They assume that once they lie down, their thoughts will settle and their emotions will follow. But tiredness and peace are not the same thing. A person can be exhausted and still deeply restless. A person can be physically still and internally overwhelmed. Peace is different. Peace is not mere silence around you. It is quiet within you. It is not only the absence of sound, but the loosening of inner strain. It is the gentle shift from resisting life to releasing it for a while. It is the sacred human moment when you stop trying to carry every demand, every fear, every responsibility at once, and allow yourself to simply exist without tension pressing against every thought. To embrace peace before sleep is first to recognize how unfamiliar peace has become for many people. They know how to rush, how to achieve, how to endure, how to worry, how to keep going even when they are mentally frayed. But when the night asks them to be still, they do not know how to enter stillness without bringing their anxiety with them. Their body lies down, but their mind continues pacing. Their breathing remains shallow, their chest remains tight, their thoughts stay crowded. It is as if they have been living in a storm for so long that calm now feels strange. Yet peace does not require perfection before it arrives. It does not wait until every problem is fixed. It enters the moment you stop insisting that the mind must solve everything before the heart is allowed to rest. There is something profoundly healing about choosing peace on purpose. It means you begin to treat the night as more than a leftover space after the day is done. You begin to see it as a place of restoration. During the day, your attention is pulled in many directions. There are tasks, people, expectations, disappointments, deadlines, interruptions. But at night, you are given a different invitation. The invitation is not to produce, not to prove, not to perform, but to soften. To embrace peace means accepting that this softer state is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is strength expressed in a quieter form. It is the kind of strength that says, I have carried enough for one day, and now I will let calm have a place in me. Often, what blocks peace is not the presence of problems, but the habit of clinging to them mentally. You may keep rehearsing what you should have done differently. You may keep predicting what might go wrong tomorrow. You may keep replaying painful moments because part of you believes that staying mentally engaged with them will somehow protect you. But the mind can become addicted to tension. It begins to treat worry as responsibility and overthinking as preparation. This is one of the great deceptions of emotional exhaustion. It convinces you that if you stop worrying, you stop caring. But that is not true. Caring does not require chaos. Responsibility does not require inner torment. You can care deeply and still choose peace. You can take life seriously and still let your mind rest. Peace before sleep also requires gentleness toward yourself. A harsh mind cannot enter rest easily. If you lie down and immediately begin accusing yourself for not doing more, not being better, not handling life more perfectly, your nervous system will remain in tension. The heart closes when it feels attacked, even by your own thoughts. That is why embracing peace means speaking to yourself differently at the end of the day. Not with denial, not with false praise, but with mercy. You may say inwardly, "Today was heavy, but I made it through. Some things remain unfinished. I do not need to finish everything tonight. I am tired and I am allowed to rest. I am affected and I am still worthy of calm." These are not dramatic statements, but they make space for peace. They tell your inner world that the night is not another battlefield. There is also a physical side to embracing peace. The body remembers stress even when words cannot explain it. Your shoulders tighten, your jaw hardens, your breathing becomes short, your stomach stays unsettled, your muscles remain prepared for conflict even when the day is over. When you choose peace before sleep, you are also choosing to let the body receive the message that it is safe enough to release. A slower breath, a softened forehead, a less guarded chest, a relaxed hand on the blanket, these small acts become signals to the mind that it no longer needs to stay on high alert. Peace begins in the invisible places. It moves through breath, posture, and permission. It often arrives quietly, not as a sudden emotional breakthrough, but as a gradual unwinding of all that has remained clenched within you. Peace is also a form of trust, though not necessarily in a religious sense. It is trust that the night can hold what you do not resolve today. It is trust that you do not need to carry tomorrow before it arrives. It is trust that rest is not wasted time, but preparation for renewal. So many people go into the night as if sleep were a temporary interruption to worry, rather than a doorway into healing. But peace changes that relationship. Peace tells you that rest is not escape, it is recovery. It is how the mind regains clarity, how the emotions settle, how the body repairs, how hope quietly returns to the places where strain has been living too long. When you begin to embrace peace before sleep, you also begin to reclaim the night from fear. Instead of seeing bedtime as the moment when your thoughts become loudest, it can become the moment when your heart feels most cared for. Instead of dreading the silence, you can begin to enter it with tenderness. Instead of lying down with resistance, you can lie down with softness. This does not mean every night will feel effortless. Some nights will still be restless. Some nights will still carry sadness, pressure, or uncertainty. But even then, peace can be practiced. Peace can be welcomed in layers. It can begin with one breath, one release, one thought that is kinder than the thoughts that came before it. And perhaps that is what makes peace before sleep so powerful. It is not dramatic, but it changes everything slowly. It teaches the heart that it does not have to end each day in panic. It teaches the mind that silence is not something to fear. It teaches the body that it can stop bracing. It teaches the soul that rest is not something to earn after perfect performance, but something to receive because being human requires renewal. It teaches the mind that silence is not something to fear. It teaches the body that it can stop bracing. It teaches the soul that rest is not something to earn after perfect performance, but something to receive because being human requires renewal. Tonight, peace may not arrive as a great wave. It may come as a quiet easing, a softening around the edges of your thoughts, a gentle lessening of the pressure you have carried all day. And if you let it stay, if you stop pushing it away with worry, with replaying, with self-judgments, then the night becomes more than darkness and sleep. It becomes a place where your inner world is finally allowed to breathe, where your exhausted heart is no longer demanded from, where calm is no longer distant, and where you begin to remember what it feels like to lie down not only tired, but truly at peace. Healings is often imagined as something dramatic. People think of sudden breakthroughs, visible changes, powerful moments, or unforgettable turning points that clearly separate pain from peace. They wait for something unmistakable, something large enough to convince them that real change has finally arrived. But many of the deepest forms of healing do not begin that way. They begin quietly. They begin in moments so small and gentle that a restless mind can easily overlook them. A quieter breath, a softer thought, a night when the heart feels slightly less heavy than it did the day before, a moment of stillness in which the body stops fighting itself, a pause in the noise where, for the first time in a long time, your inner world does not feel like a battlefield. Healing can begin there, not always with great force, but with quiet. Not always with certainty, but with softness. Not always with answers, but with the simple realization that you are no longer being crushed in exactly the same way as before. Many people miss the beginning of healing because they are looking for intensity instead of tenderness. They expect healing to announce itself loudly, to arrive with immediate relief, instant clarity, or complete emotional release. But life often works more gently than that. Human hearts, especially tired ones, do not always heal through shock or speed. They heal in places where they are finally allowed to stop bracing. When the noise decreases, when the pressure softens, when the soul is no longer being pulled in 10 directions at once, something within begins to loosen. Quiet moments create that space. They remove the constant demand to react, perform, fix, and explain. They allow the inner self to come forward honestly. And sometimes what rises in that quiet is not more confusion, but the first true sign of recovery. The world teaches people to trust movement more than stillness. If you are doing something, planning something, solving something, then it feels like progress. But silence can feel unfamiliar, even threatening, especially to someone who has been carrying stress, fear, grief, or emotional pain for a long time. Quiet may seem empty at first. It may even feel uncomfortable because it removes the distractions that kept your pain hidden during the day. Yet that discomfort does not mean quiet is harmful. Often it means quiet is honest. It gives your heart a chance to be heard beneath the noise of daily survival. And when the heart is finally heard, healing can begin its work. Not because the pain instantly disappears, but because it is no longer buried under constant activity. What is acknowledged can be cared for. What is faced gently can begin to change. There is something deeply human about the quiet of the night. The day is filled with tasks, expectations, interruptions, deadlines, conversations, and the invisible pressure to remain composed no matter what is happening inside. But the night has a different rhythm. It does not ask you to impress anyone. It does not demand productivity. It does not require explanations. It invites you to set things down. And when you accept that invitation, the quiet becomes more than silence around you. It becomes a kind of shelter within you. In that shelter, healing often begins in ways you cannot measure immediately. Your breathing steadies. Your muscles release tension they have been carrying for hours. Your thoughts slow just enough for one kind thought to rise above the harsher ones. Your chest feels a little less tight. None of this may look extraordinary from the outside, but on the inside it can be the beginning of something profound. Quiet moments matter because pain is often made worse by constant stimulation. When the mind never rests, when the emotions are never given room to settle, when there is always one more message, one more worry, one more responsibility, one more thought demanding your attention, the inner self remains unsettled. Healing needs space. It needs room to breathe. It needs moments in which you are not defending yourself from the day, or preparing yourself for tomorrow. This is why stillness can be so powerful. Stillness does not solve every problem, but it changes the condition in which your heart meets those problems. It offers rest instead of reaction. It offers presence instead of panic. It offers softness instead of strain. And in that gentler condition, the mind becomes less crowded, the body becomes less guarded, and the soul becomes more able to receive comfort. To believe that healing can begin in quiet moments is also to stop dismissing small improvements. Sometimes people stay longer than necessary because they do not honor the little signs that they are already moving toward wholeness. They tell themselves it does not count unless everything changes at once. But healing is rarely that simple. More often, it arrives in layers. One night you cry and feel slightly lighter afterward. One morning you wake up and notice that the fear is still there, but it is no longer as sharp. One evening you sit in silence, and for a few minutes your thoughts are not attacking you. These moments are easy to ignore if you only respect dramatic transformation. But they matter. They are evidence that the heart is responding to gentleness. They are proof that the nervous system can learn calm again. They are reminders that restoration often grows quietly before it becomes visible. Kwe also teaches trust. Not a blind or forced trust, but a patient trust in the process of becoming well. When you sit in stillness without demanding immediate results, you begin to learn that healing does not always need to be controlled in order to be real. Sometimes it unfolds when you stop forcing it. Sometimes the heart repairs in the background of rest, the way the body repairs itself during sleep without your conscious effort. You cannot command every wound to close on your schedule. You cannot pressure your emotions into peace. But you can make space for healing by becoming still enough to receive it. You can stop interrupting your own recovery with constant fear and self-pressure. You can allow silence to do what noise never could. There is another reason quiet moments are powerful. They return you to yourself. Pain often disconnects you from your own inner life. Stress makes you reactive. Fear makes you guarded. Emotional heaviness makes you numb or overwhelmed. After a while, you may lose touch with what you actually feel beneath the constant pressure. Quiet reintroduces you to that deeper place. It allows you to notice what hurts without exaggerating it, what needs attention without judgment, what part of you has been waiting for kindness. In quiet, the mask begins to fall. The performance ends. You are no longer managing everyone's expectations or even your own impossible standards. You are simply present with yourself. And that presence, when it is gentle rather than condemning, becomes healing in itself. This is why the smallest quiet rituals can carry such power. Sitting still for a few minutes before sleep, breathing deeply without rushing to the next thought, letting the room remain silent instead of filling it with distraction, closing your eyes and choosing not to replay every painful moment of the day, softening your body instead of holding tension like armor. These are not meaningless habits. They are acts of care. They are signals to your inner world that it is safe enough to stop fighting for a little while. They tell the heart that it does not have to stay on alert all night. They tell the mind that not every silence needs to be filled. They tell the body that rest is allowed. And when the whole self begins to receive that message, healing no longer feels distant. It begins to feel possible. Believing in quiet healing also changes the way you see your hardest nights. Instead of judging yourself because you are not fully better yet, you begin to notice what is happening beneath the surface. You realize that even on nights when tears come, healing may still be taking place. Even on nights when the heart feels tender, something may be softening in a good way. Even on nights when you feel weak, your willingness to stop, breathe, and remain present may itself be part of the restoration. Quiet moments are not empty. They are often full of invisible repair. They carry the kind of work that does not shout, but slowly changes you from within. And if you stay open to them, if you stop demanding that healing be loud before you believe in it, you may begin to notice that the peace you have been seeking does not always arrive through force or intensity. Sometimes it enters quietly, settles gently, and begins restoring you in the still places of the night where the noise has finally faded and your tired heart is no longer being asked to do anything except breathe, soften, and begin again from within the silence where healing first learns how to live. Many people have learned how to keep going, but very few have truly learned how to rest. They know how to meet deadlines, carry responsibilities, solve problems, support others, and push through exhaustion with quiet determination. They know how to stay useful even when they are empty, how to remain dependable even when they are drained, and how to keep moving even when something deep inside is asking them to stop. In a world that often praises constant effort, rest is misunderstood. It is treated like a reward for finishing everything, a luxury for people who have time, or a sign of weakness for those who cannot keep up. But real rest is not weakness, and it is not separate from healing. Rest is part of restoration. It is not an interruption to recovery. It is one of the ways recovery begins. There is a kind of damage that comes not only from pain, but from never pausing long enough to recover from pain. A person can survive difficult days for a while. They can carry emotional pressure, physical tiredness, disappointment, stress, and mental overload longer than they ever thought possible. But survival is not the same as restoration. Surviving keeps you functioning. Restoring brings you back to life. And restoration cannot happen in a soul that is being constantly stretched, constantly stimulated, constantly demanded from without ever being allowed to slow down. Even the strongest heart becomes fragile when it is overused without renewal. Even the most disciplined mind becomes clouded when it is denied stillness. Even the body begins to speak through fatigue, heaviness, sleeplessness, tension, and quiet aches when it has been asked to endure more than it has been allowed to release. Rest is not merely sleep, though sleep matters deeply. Rest is a broader and more tender experience than simply closing your eyes. It is the release of inner strain. It is the moment when the mind is no longer carrying every responsibility at once. It is when the body no longer behaves as if it must stay prepared for the next burden. It is when the heart no longer feels guilty for needing space. Rest is the permission to stop performing strength and begin receiving care. That is why it is part of restoration. Restoration requires more than endurance. It requires the soul to be given a place where it does not have to prove anything, solve anything, or carry everything. It requires enough softness for healing to enter. Many people resist rest because they fear what will happen when they become still. When the two fades and the busyness stops, thoughts rise. Emotions surface. Pain that was hidden beneath activity begins to make itself known. This can make rest feel uncomfortable, even threatening. A person may keep themselves busy, not because they are strong, but because they are afraid of what silence will reveal. Yet this is exactly why rest matters. Rest uncovers what constant motion conceals. It reveals where the body is tense, where the mind is weary, where the heart has been hurting without attention. And while that honesty may feel difficult at first, it is also the doorway to real restoration. You cannot heal what you never allow yourself to notice. You cannot restore what you keep covering with relentless motion. There is wisdom in understanding that you were not created to live at full emotional and mental output all the time. Human beings are not machines. They are not built to function without pause, absorb endless pressure, and remain untouched by what they carry. Yet many people judge themselves harshly for needing rest, as if fatigue is failure or stillness is laziness. They lie down physically, but mentally continue working. They sit in silence, but emotionally remain on duty. They tell themselves they will rest later, after one more task, one more message, one more worry, one more problem solved. But later keeps moving, and in the meantime, the inner self becomes increasingly depleted. Restoration cannot begin in a life that is always postponed. It begins when rest is no longer treated as optional. Rest also restores because it returns clarity. A tired mind rarely sees life accurately. It magnifies fears, deepens frustration, shortens patience, and makes tomorrow feel heavier than it may truly be. When you are exhausted, even small problems can feel unbearable because you are responding to them without the strength you need. Rest does not always change your circumstances immediately, but it changes the condition in which you face them. After rest, the same life may still be waiting, but you meet it with a steadier mind, a calmer nervous system, and a heart less bruised by overexposure. This is why rest is not wasted time. It is preparation for wiser living. It is how the body repairs, how the mind reorganizes, how the emotions settle, and how strength quietly returns without noise. There is also a profound emotional healing that happens when a person lets themselves rest without guilt. Guilt is one of the hidden enemies of restoration. It follows many people into the night and tells them they have not done enough to deserve peace. It says they should be more productive, more resilient, more available, more disciplined, more in control. But the body does not heal from guilt. The heart does not soften under accusation. Restoration needs mercy. It needs the kind of inner voice that says, "You have carried enough today. You are allowed to stop now. You do not need to earn this moment of stillness." Your need for rest does not make you weak. It makes you human. That kind of gentleness changes everything. It makes rest feel safe. It allows the nervous system to unclench. It gives the soul permission to come out of survival mode. Rest is part of restoration, because healing often happens in the background in ways you do not fully see while they are taking place. Just as the body repairs itself during sleep without asking for your conscious effort, the inner life also begins to mend when you stop forcing it to keep performing. Emotional wounds can soften in rest. Overwhelmed thoughts can untangle in rest. Tension can leave the body in rest. Hope can quietly rise again in rest. Not because rest solves everything at once, but because it creates the conditions in which healing is possible. Constant strain delays repair. Rest invites it. Pressure hardens what is tender. Rest gives it room to breathe. Overactivity keeps the soul defended. Rest lets it open. Sometimes the deepest reason people avoid rest is because they have tied their worth to productivity. If they are doing something, achieving something, helping someone, fixing something, then they feel valuable. But when they are still, they feel exposed. They wonder who they are when they are not useful. They feel uneasy in moments that ask nothing from them. This is a painful way to live because it means peace is always dependent on performance. But restoration asks a different question. It asks whether you can believe you still have worth even when you are quiet, tired, unproductive, and in need. True rest begins when you no longer require yourself to be constantly impressive in order to deserve care. It begins when you realize that being alive is enough reason to need restoration. At night, this truth becomes especially important. The end of the day is not only the end of activity, it can also be the beginning of return. Return to your breathing, return to your body, return to your inner world, return to the parts of yourself that got lost beneath urgency, obligation, and emotional noise. When you let the day end without dragging all of it into the night, rest becomes a bridge back to yourself. It becomes a place where your body is supported, your thoughts are allowed to slow, and your heart is no longer being pulled in every direction. In that softer space, something inside you begins to remember what safety feels like. The shoulders lower, the chest loosens, the mind stops racing with the same force. The spirit is no longer trying to outrun exhaustion. And perhaps this is the deepest beauty of rest. It does not demand that you be fully healed before you enter it. It welcomes you while you are still tired, still hurting, still uncertain, still carrying questions you cannot answer tonight. Rest does not wait for perfection. It meets you in your incompleteness and begins working there. It teaches the heart that slowing down is not giving up. It teaches the body that release is possible. It teaches the mind that silence is not emptiness, but a place where renewal quietly gathers strength. So when you lie down tonight, do not think of rest as something separate from healing. Think of it as one of the ways healing reaches you, one of the ways strength returns, one of the ways the pieces within you begin to settle back into place, one breath at a time, one quiet moment at a time, one surrendered layer at a time, until what felt worn down all day begins. In the gentleness of stillness, to be restored from within the body is often easier to understand than the heart. When the body is tired, you feel it in your muscles, your eyes, your breathing, your posture, your energy. When the body is in pain, it usually gives clear signals. It asks for sleep, for stillness, for medicine, for water, for relief. Most people understand that a hurting body needs care. They know that weakness, sickness, exhaustion, or physical strain cannot simply be ignored forever. But the heart is different. Its pain is quieter. Its needs are easier to overlook. A person can smile while carrying emotional wounds. They can continue working, speaking, helping others, and moving through daily routines while something inside them is deeply unsettled. Because the heart does not always bleed where others can see it, many people learn to neglect it. They tend to their body when it breaks down, but they leave the heart unattended, hoping it will somehow heal on its own, without comfort, without gentleness, and without rest. Yet the heart needs comfort as much as the body. It may not ask in the same way, but it needs it just as deeply. The heart becomes bruised by disappointment, worn down by pressure, frightened by uncertainty, and exhausted by carrying pain for too long. It gets tired from holding in words it never got to say, from pretending to be strong when it needed tenderness, from absorbing stress day after day without enough release. A heart that has been living under emotional strain cannot thrive on logic alone. It does not recover simply because you tell yourself to move on. It does not soften just because you remain productive. It needs comfort. It needs reassurance. It needs calm. It needs moments where it is not judged for feeling too much or too deeply. Just as a tired body needs a place to lie down, a tired heart needs a place within you where it can finally stop defending itself. Many people have been taught to value toughness more than tenderness. They were shown how to keep going, how to stay useful, how to carry responsibility, and how not to make too much noise about what they feel. Over time, they become good at suppressing the needs of the heart. They can recognize when they need food, rest, or medical attention, but they no longer know how to recognize emotional hunger. They ignore loneliness, they dismiss sadness, they minimize fear. They tell themselves that other people have it worse, that they should be grateful, that they should not be so affected, that they need to be stronger. But the heart does not heal through being shamed. It does not become peaceful through criticism. The same way a wounded body would not recover under constant harshness, the inner self also needs kindness in order to heal. Comforting the heart does not mean becoming weak, dramatic, or unable to face life. It means becoming honest enough to admit that emotional pain deserves care. It means understanding that inner wounds are real, even when they are invisible. If your body had been pushed beyond its limit, you would not accuse it for slowing down. You would understand that it needs recovery. Why then do people so often accuse their heart for feeling the effects of what it has endured? Why do they treat emotional pain like failure, when in truth it is often a sign that something meaningful has been carried too long without enough support? The heart needs comfort because it carries the weight of experience. It stores grief, longing, fear, disappointment, stress, and hope. It responds not just to what happens outside of you, but to what those experiences mean inside of you. That is why it cannot be treated like a machine. It is not built to absorb endless strain without softness. There are many ways a heart asks for comfort. Sometimes it asks through restlessness, sometimes through tears that come unexpectedly, sometimes through numbness when it has become too overwhelmed to feel clearly, sometimes through irritation, exhaustion, or a strange heaviness that follows you even when nothing dramatic has happened that day. These signs are often dismissed because they do not look urgent in the same way a physical injury does. But emotional neglect has consequences. A heart denied comfort begins to harden or collapse inward. It becomes overly guarded, overly tired, or quietly hopeless. It may continue functioning but not freely. It may keep moving but not with peace. Without comfort, the heart can start believing it must survive without being seen, without being soothed, and without ever being truly cared for. This is why the quiet moments before sleep matter so much. The night often reveals what the day has hidden. During the day, distraction keeps many emotions buried. There are tasks to complete, people to respond to, and responsibilities to manage. But when the noise fades, the heart comes closer to the surface. What you truly feel becomes harder to outrun. This can be uncomfortable, but it can also be healing if you respond with gentleness instead of resistance. Before sleep, the body seeks rest naturally. In that same moment, the heart also seeks comfort. It wants release from tension. It wants to stop replaying the day. It wants reassurance that it does not have to stay in survival mode all night. It wants to be met with the same compassion you would offer to a body that had carried too much. Comfort for the heart often begins with the way you speak to yourself. Many people go into the night with an inner voice that is sharp, demanding, and unforgiving. They review mistakes, criticize themselves for not doing enough, and pressure their mind to solve tomorrow before sleep even begins. But this only deepens emotional exhaustion. A heart in pain cannot rest under attack. It needs a gentler tone. It needs words like, "You have been through a lot today. You do not have to carry all of this tonight. It is okay that you feel tired. It is okay that this affected you. You are allowed to be human." These quiet truths do not make pain disappear instantly, but they create conditions where the heart can begin to soften. Comfort is often less about dramatic solutions and more about changing the emotional atmosphere inside you. The body and the heart are deeply connected in this way. When the heart is distressed, the body often carries it. The chest tightens. Sleep becomes difficult. The jaw clenches. The breath becomes shallow. The stomach feels unsettled. Shoulders remain tense long after the stressful moment has passed.